the highest court in the land. He is facing what is a blow to one of the strategies that I've told you about, that we've been documenting, how they want to, from the White House, get some of these cases up to the court. But this conservative-leaning Supreme Court is rejecting one of those bids. This is not the final act, but it is a huge, important, key step, and a step that Trump lost. He basically wanted the court to side with him in a bid to defund and go after these USAID contractors. The move comes just about 12 hours after key parts of the address. So I'm going to show you how this went, because some of what the president said last night was false, just simple lies. Some of it was hopeful, meaning things that he, like any president, might want to achieve, and trying to tell the nation about that. And then some of it was proven false, because the president made claims about things he's doing in this joint sort of congressional press address, right, to the pressing his case to the whole country as they watch. But he was basically bragging about things he says he has done, which by the next morning, the court said, no, you haven't.
Upon taking office, I imposed an immediate freeze on all federal hiring, a freeze on all new federal regulations, and a freeze on all foreign aid.
The Supreme Court rejected the Trump administration's effort to freeze nearly $2 billion in foreign aid.
Yes, he tried the freeze. Yes, he said it. And by the next morning, that was the breaking news. The courts stopped it. And this is something that is a larger problem for Donald Trump for the reasons we've told you about, that he is deliberately, repeatedly going beyond precedent, the law, what courts have ruled in the past, and seeing if he can get away with it. And on this one, he's not getting away with it. There are more than one set of rulings. A lot of them start at the lower courts, as you probably know. We've covered all this. But this is the first major ruling that goes against the defunding plans. And it is a signal that while this, as I've mentioned, is not the final step in the case, right? You start with basically the early steps, and then the White House has tried to, when they've lost, appeal that to the Supreme Court, saying, we know we're losing, but please help us. And so this morning, the Supreme Court said, no, we're not helping you get out of this early jam, and you can't just defund, at least this way. The ruling was 5-4. And so that also gives us new information in this second Trump term, because we've got these justices, including the ones he put on the court. And so what you see here against Trump on this case, right, is a working majority of 5 justices. And I'm going to leave this up for you because we could be following this for at least the next several years. This could be the coalition that sometimes says no to Trump, even though you see Barrett on there as a Trump appointee and you see Chief Justice Roberts, a Republican appointee. What you also see here is why the White House has this strategy, because they already have 4 votes for something like this, right? They narrowly lost, but they have 4 votes basically willing to go along with the rewriting of how funding and the power of the purse and congressional norms that go back 100 years. So you see those 5 going against the president. You see the 4, and we could see this coalition and this breakdown in the future. Roberts and Barrett also joined the liberal justices in that January ruling, which was a different topic. But again, if you cleave it on the line of just doing whatever Donald Trump demands or not, they said that sentencing in New York could go forward while he had those other justices siding with him. So this is a split. This is one of the battle lines that people follow. And remember, Donald Trump has pursued power in very aggressive ways that tested our system. And sometimes he lost, and sometimes the Supreme Court bailed him out. But other presidents have done this too. I'm not saying he's anything like FDR or Harry Truman. If you talk to historians and people who study this stuff, those are some of the high point presidencies for foreign policy and leading America. But there were big cases that you read about in law school about testing powers, which meant that the era of those different presidents was also tested by the era of those Supreme Courts. And we're seeing that replay now. And if everything I'm telling you sounds a little bit legal, a little bit in the weeds, I promise you I'm not just emphasizing this because I'm MSNBC's legal correspondent, because I'm a lawyer. I'm emphasizing this because when presidents test power, it is first and foremost the Supreme Court that is that block. We can debate whether members of Congress should yell more or less or hold up different paddles. People were talking about that last night. But it is always in our system of government, the Supreme Court, that matters most in quickly, before even a next election, saying no, if you've exceeded authority. So this ruling today is important. It was concise and to the point. We know about the split because there was a dissent, but the unsigned majority ruling said this effort by Trump